Get you one of those little slides. Call to order the school committee meeting of November 12th, 2013. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. I love to hear voices behind us when we're doing the pledge. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm very well, and you?
Thank you.
Good.
We will start out with the public comment period, and I have two people signed up for public comment. Ms. McNeil. And you know the ground rules of public comment.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
I just wish I had a watch on that I could tell how long that was. As you know, my usual topic of coming here is about special education. I hope that when you're looking at doing the budget, that replacing some of the things that have been taken away in the past will be reinstated. I also, we've had not having enough aides, not having the adjustment counselors. I also think that we need to be looking at a transition coordinator. I don't see anybody talking about that anywhere. We need to prepare our students to be able to go to post-secondary education, all our students, and that includes the special education students. And I don't think that they're getting what they need. We also have, there's been a little concern from what I've seen about some of the data that if it's being recorded correctly. So since we're being so data-driven, and if you want some specifics, I'll be happy to share that with you. But I'm concerned that we're not recording things as they should be, or there's some places a glitch, because some of the data isn't coming out quite the way it should be. The CPAC, I know that you're going to be talking about iPods tonight and the special education students. Again, CPAC wasn't even, get our input on what we think, the parents' perspective on things is really important. And again, we're supposed to be an advisory to this board, and we're not being used as that, and that's disappointing to me. That is something that same thing with the parent engagement. We have not been contacted by the people from the Parent Engagement Center. If they're going to be, recommending and talking to people about where they should go and what they should do, they should be having some input from the PAC. And we need to have some connection. When I have not been contacted, we've kind of reached out a few times, I believe, or at least sent them things. But I'm a little concerned as to the what they're being trained, how they're being trained, and especially in regards to special education, and when someone has a concern about what their student is should be tested on, or if there's a problem. That's a big concern for me, because special education is a world that takes a long time to kind of get to know it. Sure. And I'm concerned about other parents advising and not knowing what kind of education they've had in that. How am I doing on my time?
About half a minute.
All right, half minute. Well, I guess that's about it.
Well, keep going.
But my main concern, as you know, is to make sure that our special education students are getting what they need in order to go. And our MCAS numbers, we're not getting there. And if they're not, MCAS is only one measure, but if they're not even coming close, and we're not getting AYP, and we're not getting even close to the numbers, I think we really need to look at what we're doing, and also making sure that the children are getting a well-rounded education and not just be taken out to do MCAS tutoring. I know it's kind of a balance that we need to do, but they also need to be able to go into specials and other things.
Actually, I just want you to stay, because for a second. So
okay.
When I'm talking, I feel like I'm talking to you and not somebody who's moving. Thank you, first of all, for coming. And one of the things that we had on our agenda, which we didn't quite advertise, I think the way that we had intended to, was to get parent input on the budget process. And although we have it on the agenda tonight, and I will be taking comments from the public on that, I expect that we're going to repeat it probably at the next meeting as well, which in many ways makes sense, because at that point we'll actually have a draft budget to publish
Right.
for people to see. So,
Right, and I did not take that as that was what the agenda,
right. And like I said,
Indicated.
there's, unfortunately,
because that would have been a lot more page to talk about the budget.
but you'll have an opportunity again probably next meeting, and we'll discuss that within the context of the budget this time as well, and tonight as well. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Soares.
Has my time started
Good.
yet?
No, it hasn't. I'll wait till you start.
God bless you. As you noticed, I didn't finish my little thing last time, so it's been probably 3 weeks, and so I hope this all makes sense.
Okay. Now I'll go.
Now I start. What are the facts? Does Dr. Rizzi make $173,000 per year with a 2.5% increase each year? With 2 years and 10 months to go, her contract was extended another year with no reason from Dr. Rizzi. Dr. Rizzi gave back to the town of Stoughton $780,000 that she over-budgeted for in the year 2013. 3 years ago, Dr. Rizzi was voted no confidence by the teachers who work for her and the union who represents the teachers who work for her. I became frustrated because when someone wants an extra year added to their contract, an analysis should take place to see if it's justified. Dr. Rizzi refused to answer a direct question of why she wanted the extension, and that's her right. Now, this is conjecture on my part. I believe Dr. Rizzi is going to retire. I have no proof, but her wants of this extension and my call to mass teachers' retirement seems to suggest that time and age comply with Dr. Rizzi's extra year. It's not the duty of this panel to grant to Dr. Rizzi her wishes. The duty of this panel is to make proper decisions for the people of Stoughton. That is what you took an oath to do. In the field of politics, the schools committee's job is to push for the facts until they get them. They can't make correct determinations with partial or incoherent facts. Some people on the committee are so nice they cannot say no. There is a psychology in saying no. It takes intestinal fortitude to say no. Dr. Rizzi gave back to the town of Stoughton $780,000. I have always given Dr. Rizzi a difficult time on her school budget as a town meeting member. I'm always talking about the recession, how difficult it is for those people who are out of work and the seniors of the town to make ends meet. Dr. Rizzi is stating that she has $780,000 in money she can't use for various reasons. Reasons I have never heard of or possibilities that could occur. Yet anyone can make a mistake, but the school budget continues to go up with little sensitivity to a recession. When the school committee panel voted 4-1 in favor of Dr. Rizzi's extension of her contract, I didn't hear anything about her vote of no confidence for the teachers and the union. This leads me to believe that the teachers who work for her, if a vote were to be taken today, would mean that this is a non-problem. I'm confused. Did anyone on this board who was there take the no confidence vote into consideration? Has anyone here who voted for Dr. Rizzi's extension of her contract take that into consideration? Has anyone asked the union who could verify if the no confidence vote still applies? What progress has Dr. Rizzi made to eradicate this no confidence problem? I thought the open meeting with its transparency would address these issues. It did not. Why is the school committee abdicating or relinquishing their responsibility to Dr. Rizzi? I have thought about this incessantly and came to only one conclusion. It is the magic of Dr. Rizzi. That's a compliment, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Soares. All right, on to the agenda. Next up, Stoughton Teachers Association. I'm not trying to time you. I'm trying to get rid of my stopwatch. Sorry.
Right.
Good evening, Mr. Gunning. How are you?
I'm John Gunning, Vice President of the STA, Social Studies teacher at the middle school. I want to thank the school committee for its time tonight. I want to thank the teachers from the Dawes School and teachers from the Jones School who have come here tonight along with concerned parents. A couple of weeks ago, my colleague Andrea Pires was here urging the school committee, urging you to stop the dysfunction in our schools. We have a different audience here this evening, but the message is much the same. I'm not here tonight to argue over details of one issue or another, but to express that teachers are concerned that the school committee returned over $750,000 to the town, disregarding the needs of special ed parents who should have access to a full-time administrator of special education. Teachers are concerned that over $750,000 is being returned when we cannot find special ed aides to work in the classrooms to meet the critical needs of our students. Teachers are concerned that the school committee intends to approve funding for Superintendent Rizzi to attend a week-long conference on mediation in New Orleans when the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed is recommending that a third party be used to work with the school committee, the superintendent, and the STA on our relationship. Teachers are concerned that the superintendent is proposing to transfer thousands of dollars of the school department's budget to the town's director of human resources to essentially pay him to do a job which is the superintendent's responsibility. Teachers are concerned about a whole host of issues going on in the Stoughton Public Schools. They're concerned that for yet another year, we're forced to demonstrate and battle with the very group that we should be partnering with to create a better school system. We could discuss all of these concerns in great depth, but instead we simply call upon you, the school committee, representing the citizens of the town of Stoughton, to stop the dysfunction in the schools. This dysfunction must stop. The proposal to obliterate the teacher's salary schedule and replace it with an experimental system would further exacerbate the turnover crisis in our schools. This dysfunction must stop. You know that teacher salaries are not the problem. You just turned over $780,000 to the town. And your radical proposal would cause even more teachers to leave the schools and cause parents to possibly consider withdrawing their children from our schools. Above all else, parents, teachers, school committee members, and the superintendent must agree that what matters most is a functional school system where adults work together for the betterment of our students. We'd like to pull together, settle a reasonable teacher's contract, focus on making the school district a more functional entity. We cannot afford to have more talented teachers consider leaving our schools. This is a very, very, very real concern that the Stoughton Teachers Association has. Let's not cause parents to consider possibly withdrawing their children from our schools. We believe in the Stoughton Public Schools. We believe in public education. So we'd like to pull together. The objective should be to settle a reasonable teacher's contract and to focus on making our school district a more functional entity. Bottom line, functionality over dysfunctionality. I want to thank you for the time. I would like to introduce Jen Lombardi from the Jones School, who will read a statement for the committee.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jen Lombardi. I'm here on behalf of the Jones School. Thank you. We, the undersigned members of the Stoughton Teachers Association, petition the members of the school committee and the administration to negotiate a contract with the STA that attracts and retains highly qualified educators to the Stoughton Public Schools. Further, through this petition, we reaffirm our determination to achieve a contract that fairly and equitably acknowledges our contributions to the Stoughton Public Schools. This was signed, it's a short list, but it was signed by 100% of the STA membership at the Jones School. We're a very small school. So Marlene Wax, Nicole Veloso, Lynn Maloof, Yelena Mamadova, Kelly Penny, Christine Carter, Shannon Peachy, Brooke Porter, Jennifer Lombardi, Janice Bryant, and Elizabeth Doughton. And I have a copy for
Thank you. You can just pass it down if you want. Or... Thank you, Eddie. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to introduce Linda Noble and Sue McCabe, both teachers from the Daw School.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We, the undersigned members of the Stoughton Teachers Association, petition that the members of the school committee and the administration to negotiate a contract with the STA that attracts and retains highly qualified educators to the Stoughton Public Schools. Further, through this petition, we reaffirm our determination to achieve a contract that fairly and equitably acknowledges our contributions to the Stoughton Public Schools. It's signed by Linda Noble, Kendra Murphy, Carrie Morrison, Donna Bartlett, Tracy Garant, Megan Pastizzi, Dana Joy, Elizabeth DeLong, Sandra Fisher, Barbara Hathaway, Barbara Landon, Daniel Egan, Tony Jo Gardabarcio, Kathy Lewis, Christine Counter, Elaine D'Angelo, Jen Jacobs, Meredith Perry, Carly Wariski, Cassie Tebow, Sue McCabe, Jillian McDonald, Shane Relihan, Anna Celia, Samantha Radiff, Sarah Leahy, Joyce Melendi, Kathy Buschenfeld, and Kristen Welch.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Pass these down. Excuse me.
Be careful, honey.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Noble, Ms. McCabe, Ms. Lombardi, and Mr. Gunning. I would like to address a couple of the things that you said, just in that I think that they have been addressed before. And I would like the chance to clarify, partly because we've talked to death the concept of the money that's been turned back, and it has been explained that this was never in salary line. It could never have been used for last year's salary, for the salaries for this contract year. It was the responsible thing to do in light of the fact that we didn't have the out-of-district placements, and we have always told town meeting that when we asked for the money as a contingency, and if it's not to be spent, it would be going back, and a large part of it was that. And then the other unforeseen, I guess, conservative approach that we took when we lost our business manager last year, and really did not know. Did not want to be in the position of overspending any accounts at a point when all the bills weren't in. And it was really, again, I think the fiscally conservative and responsible thing to do. None of that money was ever set aside for salaries and could have been used for salaries. So I am a little bit disheartened. This is, and don't get me wrong, you have every right to be here, and I do appreciate the audience, because oftentimes we feel that we're doing our job in a vacuum. We don't see the audience and we don't get feedback. I have had a lot of feedback. I think a lot of our members had, in terms of phone calls from parents. I've certainly been stopped in the stores. Teachers have talked to me, and I'm getting opinions around all sides, and it really does help us to hear from the public and to hear from the teachers and to hear from everyone involved to help us form and make an educated decision. We want to do what is right by all of you, by the taxpayers, by the parents, and by the teachers. But it is a little bit distressing to think that this is the third school committee meeting that you have come to since our last negotiating session, one that I wasn't on October 3rd. And that I know there's 2 more coming up, and there'll probably be visits as well. And you're asking us to settle, yet I'm not getting your involvement in coming to the table and picking those dates so that we can actually have this conversation in the proper format, which is in negotiations. Many of the dates, actually all the dates that I put out there were school committee days, saying I was available at 4 o'clock for negotiations. I would like to think that if there's a representative sample of your negotiating committee here, that you could have also maybe been available at 4 o'clock. I would love for the next 2 school committee days to be that, even if it's some subset of each of our negotiating teams, to start the conversation. Because this is all well and good to be talking at each other, but we're not talking to each other and really solving anything until we're sitting at the table. So I really do ask again, December 11th may be our next formal date, but I am open to some sort of subset or some sort of solution that can get us back to the table to talk, because I do not think that, we're not trying to obliterate the salary schedule. This is not an experimental schedule. 19 steps that we have on the table right now falls right in the median of somewhere between the 12 and 30 steps that contracts across the state offer. I know you didn't like the 31, we withdrew that. We have since tried to work within what is reasonable. And there's still room to work, but that work isn't happening without a conversation between us, not just in the press and on, at these types of meetings. So please, I'm just asking, come back and let's continue the negotiations and continue the conversation. And thank you. And back to my agenda, which is I'll let you introduce it.
Our school and curriculum update for this meeting is an introduction for everybody here and everyone at home to the revised mentoring program for new teachers. There's always been a mentoring program for a very long time here in Stoughton, and a lot of folks thought that it could use a certain amount of tweaking And through the Race to the Top grant, we were able to participate in a program called Project Success. And so the mentoring program has been revamped this year. And our two mentoring coordinators, who are from the middle school, Ms. Rondo and Ms. Fleming, are here to tell you a little bit about the program for mentoring new teachers. And Stephanie McLaughlin is a teacher from the Gibbons as well. So the three of them are our mentoring leaders this year.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having us. Good evening. My name is Linda Rondo. I am the Professional Development and Program Manager for the District Mentor Program. And I'd like to introduce Stephanie McLaughlin, who is the Elementary Coordinator of the program, and Denise Fleming, who is the Secondary Coordinator of the Mentoring Program. The program consists of Dr. Rizzi, the superintendent, and Mr. Jonathan Ford, the deputy superintendent, who is also the district coordinator for the program. I'd like to start off with the mission statement of the District Mentor Program. The Stoughton Public Schools System's mentoring program is an organized educational endeavor between the Stoughton Teachers Association and the school administration. The two major objectives of the mentoring program are to offer support and guidance to new members of our teaching community and to improve instruction, thereby enhancing student learning. The assistance provided by the mentoring program is available to all professional staff throughout their teaching career in Stoughton. The program's been designed to foster collegiality and collaboration to support the needs of first, second, and third year teachers in Stoughton, as well as teachers with professional status who could benefit from the program. The success of the program rests upon the willingness of all parties to work together, share successful instructional practices and valuable materials, and demonstrate their commitment to lifelong learning. We believe that a strong mentoring program will result in improved student achievement, assist in the retaining of new teachers in the profession, and create a positive and satisfying work environment. We have developed an initiative for our district that the mentoring program is dedicated to ensuring that teachers entering the school district have the support and resources necessary to be successful in the classroom and have tremendous impact on the academic growth and personal development, of their students. The program has evolved. Okay, so I'd like to talk about then and now, where we've been and where we're at. The program evolution started back in the year 2000 with Mr. Anthony Sano Jr. and Prudence Gooddale, who were central administrators. They picked a couple of people to help lead us. Lynn Jordan, at the time, was the third grade teacher at the Gibbons, who is now principal at the Gibbons, and Ian Erickson, our own OMS assistant principal. It was a volunteer steering committee that was made up of about 10 individuals to implement the program. We were ahead of the curve at the time. The program has been revised many times annually at a district level throughout the course of the years. In 2002, we had state-of-the-art program that was funded through the central administration. In 2003, the district and the state of Massachusetts came up with some changes and wanted a program that was more than just for first-year teachers. That is when the state mandated that we have a beyond the induction year program. Dr. Roberta Camacho and Diana Donovan helped to implement that program, and it has changed throughout the course of the years. In 2010, the state of Massachusetts implemented logs and tied the program to licensure. We adapted again. In 2013, this current year, there have been district changes, state changes, and federal changes, where merging the program and tweaking it and adjusting it to fit. Funding. The program currently is funded by Race to the Top funds, as Dr. Rizzi mentioned, the state Title IIA grant, and district funds. Currently, this year, the district is paying through different funding sources $21,000 for the actual district mentor program, which does not include the Race to the Top Project Success, which is a different entity that I would like to leave for Stephanie to explain. As well as working with the new teachers, we have mentor training as a part of the program. We conduct the program annually. All mentors need to be trained because good teachers of children do not necessarily make good coaches for adults, and that came right from the state regs. Mentors must receive training in the skills of effective mentoring and strategies for supporting new teachers to be successful in a standards-based classroom. This training is coordinated at our district level so that the school district can ensure the same quality of training for all the mentors throughout the district. Ongoing training for mentors takes place throughout the year as needed, and at this point I would like to turn it over to Stephanie McLaughlin so she could explain the next portion of our program.
So Denise Fleming and I had the wonderful opportunity of attending the Project Success course last year. The course is actually run through UMass Dartmouth's CUSP Center, which is the Center for University School and Community Partnerships. It is a 3-credit graduate course that we were able to take. It was a 9-month course with 15 online video lectures and modules and 3 face-to-face meetings where we were able to get to know other districts in the state and see what they were doing in their mentoring programs and help share our ideas to create a comprehensive mentoring program. The class focused on the need for skilled and seasoned teachers to mentor new teachers in hopes in retaining them. It's obviously an issue statewide, so it's something that we're really wanting to focus on in keeping new teachers. Basically, the course provided us with a curriculum for using with new teachers and mentors. So now they have an actual framework, and we brought the books if you would like to take a look through them.
Steph?
As stated before, the program is funded by... Oh, sorry.
If you would angle the mic just a little bit more towards you for the folks on there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in fact, why don't you just pull it towards you?
Just take it right out.
Yeah, and start singing more.
In the Project Success course, our final project was to look at what the current mentoring program was at the time and to make changes to it, incorporating what we had learned through the course and taking evaluations that the mentoring program had provided in the past to basically rewrite the district program. Last year I was really proud because the district plan that Denise and I wrote was actually chosen to be put on the website on UMass Dartmouth, so it is up there as a model for other districts to look at.
Congratulations.
That's great. So cool, yeah.
Last year, Denise and I were the only 2 that went to the course. This year, we were lucky to have 10 teachers attending the course. So we have 2 high school teachers, 2 middle school teachers, and 1 teacher from each of the elementary schools and the Jones School. So we now have a good cohort of trained lead mentors at each building, which is something that we're very proud of.
So,
It is for the people at home, yes.
I'm a loud talker, but that's okay. So basically what we had done is we took surveys and we assessed the program from the past and any of the changes that needed to happen. And a lot of what people from the previous years were saying that is what we needed was more building-based support. So more building-based meetings instead of district-wide meetings. So it was focused on certain things within each building. So therefore, we focused the lead mentors and chose the lead mentors based on the buildings that they were coming from. So that's why you have the 10 lead mentors attending this training. The lead mentor's job description has changed dramatically, and they are more focused on best practices within the classroom and support for the teacher, along with doing some of the typical housekeeping of, where the copiers are and so forth. But it's more focusing on more best practices. These lead mentors have individual meetings with new staff members and monthly meetings with, as Linda had mentioned, with any staff member who is working towards their professional license. So usually a second year or a third year teacher. Those are monthly meetings. A typical monthly meeting would run with those staff members, and they would start off with some school topics. How MCAS runs in their particular school, how evaluations go, parent conferences, those types of little topics that they want to talk about. Any new teacher needs, they will email new teachers to see if any concerns that they may have. And then also they would focus a lot on best practice. So for instance, the high school this month, they're all bringing lessons to their particular meeting, whether it's a lesson that they really like, whether it's a lesson that they feel the students are really engaged with, a variety of things, and they'll kind of talk about that. So it's, in some ways, it's almost like a support group for new teachers and new staff members. And that's really a lot of the focus that the previous surveys we wanted to gear that towards that. In the individual meetings that the lead mentors have with the mentees, it's primarily with new staff members right from their first year in teaching. And they focus on individual needs. And so it could be student-focused, could be assessments, looking at writing samples, teacher-focused, parent communication, all of those things. And as you look through the books, it really aligns with the books and aligns with a lot of the teacher evaluation system that has now been implemented over the last year or so. So the Project Success course has really focused a lot on that, whether it's the, no matter what book you look at. The other things that we implemented as well was the opportunities for more peer observations. And peer observations, whether it's the mentor going in to observe new staff members or the mentees observing other staff members. So there's more collaboration around that, and there's more opportunities for that for first year, second year, third year teachers to get out there and see what's going on in the other classrooms, whether it's classroom management, to particular lessons. And then we also added an amended version of a summer training, because we had 8 hires after our summer training. So typically those people would come in and they wouldn't really have what we had over the 2-day training. And so we amended that so they were able to get a technology piece of first class and all of the technology portions that we did over the summer, and they also got an evaluation piece. So that was very much an added bonus and supported by Mr. Ford. And then also we've added a couple of workshops that are needs and requests from the new teachers. So the new teachers requested some Smartboard training, so we offered a teacher-to-teacher workshop where hopefully in the near future going to be doing a baseline edge training and uploading evidence. So more supports for them are taking place. We also added a workspace on first class that gives them a lot more opportunities for articles, resources, and things in that nature. Now, with any new program and any revised program, there has to be some sort of way to assess the success of the program. So we are going to survey the lead mentors and new teachers in the middle of the year, so probably January, February. These surveys will help the lead mentors who are going to be revising the program, adding and subtracting to the program, because their final project is going to be due soon, and we obviously are going to be talking about budgets and what we're going to do for the program and so forth. So that really is something that they're going to do, and we will assess it obviously at the end as well. Because in the end, when we came up with this program, we knew it wasn't the final. We knew that we were going to have to add and subtract things. But our main goal is really to retain great teachers and give them the support that they need to be successful. And, we hope that we're well on the way to doing that.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Mr. Ford, do you have anything? I know that this is your program as well. Is there anything you'd like to add, or?
Well, I think when we initially did this, it was a request from the previous STA president, and Dr. Izzy actually asked me to utilize the RTT grant to follow through and look at what some of the options were. And that's when Denise and Stephanie went and took the training. And really, I really can't take credit for any of it, because they came back, they're incredibly enthusiastic. They saw that the program offered a good fit for what we needed in transitioning away from our old program, something new, maybe a little more productive, a little more focused, and definitely in compliance with all the different standards which are now been thrust upon the district. And they put the whole thing together. Their plan was outstanding. They coordinated everything. They had worked with Linda to bring the remnants of the old program to align it with the new program, and just did a tremendous amount of work, which was remarkably high quality, and smoothly transitioned to the new program. I just think they did a great job. They deserve all the credit in the world, and they really are the reason, the three of them are the reason why we've had such a smooth rollout this year. So.
It should be tweaked and fine-tuned, though, again. Yes, we will.
Oh, I suspect it'll be a work in progress.
Yes. Yeah, exactly, a work in progress.
As it should be. Questions, Ms. Sauvanet?
This sounds like a wonderful program. I could see how a new teacher coming into the district, knowing that there are these kinds of resources and the incredible experience that you all represent, would, it would be really helpful. One question I have is, what kind of feedback do you get from new teachers, and is that what informs your revisions, and how often do you do that, and do you send out surveys, or is it just verbal feedback? Or
We even started the year with a new teacher survey just to see coming in what they were looking for, and we had them prioritize their areas of need, so that the lead mentors at each building actually got their surveys and could see that these three teachers, one of their main concerns may have been parent communication. So that building mentor knows that that's something that they need to focus on in their building meetings. We also have, if you look in the program, every month there are reflection
I know, I
sheets.
see that.
So every month the lead mentors can be taking feedback from their mentees to see where do they want to go next. It's basically, it should be all new teacher driven. It's driven by their needs, their wants, and what they need at the time.
And the thing is, too, is we have some individuals joining our school system that are just new to our school system. They are not new teachers, per se, so that when we created the new teacher profile, it's basically a personalized, custom reflection of them, their practice, and their career, so that the people that are working with them on a day-to-day basis and a yearly basis could tailor the program to that person's individual needs. We've always done a survey at the end of the year, and that's how we have tweaked and fine-tuned and made it a work in progress. From the year 2000 to 2013, there's always been that, and that's what people told us, that they wanted building-based issues, but there are district concerns also to make sure that we're getting the same message across to everyone within the system, all of our buildings at the different levels.
And the one last question I have is, this sounds like such a great program, based on what you said and the textbooks. I'm wondering if you've shared it more widely beyond the district and region.
Well, with the other...
is there a way to sort of, pass this along to other districts?
It is up on the website through UMass Dartmouth, the CUSP website, and with the other districts that participated in the program, they also have copies of our program, as we do vice versa with them, because you have a wide variety. There was one district there that didn't even have a mentoring program, to a district who has been doing it for years. So it was a great group of people, because you had wide variety of needs and a wide variety of sizes and districts too, so you can kind of tweak it that way.
Great, thank you very much.
Dr. Brown, do you have any questions?
I think it's great. We do mentor program in Boston, and this looks good. I like the fact when you're doing the individual assessments at the middle and end of the year, so the mentees can see what they're getting, or if they're accomplishing what they came in for. So I think that's great.
Set up goals.
Yeah,
it's
great.
Thank you.
I'm nervous and jittery at first.
And I am.
Where do you all where are you finding the time? I guess that's my question, because we're having time constraints.
We do a lot of it after.
Trying
and I have to say, the lead mentors who have stepped up to take the position are not only being lead mentors at their buildings, they're also participating in the course. So their time is very stretched, and they are doing an amazing job on all
That's the hardest time everybody's finding, is the time. You want to mentor them to death,
right.
but it's only so much time time that allows it, and
And they have other commitments.
after they get
too.
through the tears and stuff, everything goes really nice. Great, keep up the good work.
Well, and I'm particularly pleased to see the involvement of the building-based group meetings, if you will, in addition to just the individual, because I think there's a lot to be learned from each other and from the questions that others have, and the additional peer observation I think is just tremendous.
The one thing, though, that is concerning to us this year is with having the building based, where we have a couple of buildings that are heavier with new people.
Sure.
That we have that one person that is mentoring, 5, 7 people,
Yeah.
or 2 people that are mentoring, so that that burden, that's a concern for us. So we're going to have to take a look at that.
Share the burden.
Next year.
Yeah.
We definitely did not anticipate the number of openings, and
Right.
therefore I think that was definitely a concern going into the summer, but I'm sure the lead mentors will collaborate and
Share the wealth.
And for some of your bigger buildings, are you anticipating next year that you'll have additional lead mentors, if you will, additional people go to training, or is this?
This was a
well, lot
2-year
of it-
appointment.
Right, it was
Oh,
a
it's a
2-year
model,
appointment,
okay.
so
I
they will
see.
definitely be back next year. As far
Okay.
as the course, that
Yeah.
is still, it depends on funding.
Okay.
Through Race to the Top, at this point, I don't
This was
believe
the
that
last
was
year
that
for
was
Race to
the
the
Yeah, it
last
is. It
year,
is.
so,
I saw that.
That's.
Okay.
But the individuals that stepped up, the 10 folks that are the building-based people, in order to make it cost-effective, for all the training, for their commitment, we wanted to have that stability for the individuals in the building. So it was put out when we all had the conversation with Mr. Ford that it would be a 2-year commitment to have that continuity.
Yeah.
As we were moving forward.
Right.
So that is a concern that we have for next year with, a few of the buildings having a significant amount of individuals.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
really appreciate your
Yeah.
efforts. Thank you.
Thank
And you
you.
can
Thank
pass
you
these
for
back
having
down.
Thank
Keep
you.
it up.
Thank you very
Dr. Brown,
much.
you can pass these back.
Thought you was letting us keep this next week.
We're going to jump a little bit out of order now. We did not anticipate having the chair of the selectmen join us tonight, and he has a letter, the joint letter that was drafted and adopted by the selectmen last meeting. We'll give them a second to.
Grace, I wonder if you want me to talk about feasibility at this point or not. Well, it was all going to be about our reaching out to our
Yes,
legislators.
yes, good idea. So, Mr. Enzovino, if you'd like to now come to the table, there's plenty of room.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, thank you, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Thank you for acknowledging me. I did bring, as you mentioned, we did vote on this at our last meeting, and I just thought it would be nice to bring the letters to you. I've signed them. I've signed the 3 of them for our 3 legislators, and if you vote in favor of it, I'll leave the letters with you, and for your signature, and just ask that you have copies sent back to the.
Absolutely. Would it help if I read the letter into the record so that people knew what it is?
I think it would be lovely, very important, and that it's very, very significant that both boards would be willing to come forward and make this statement, and it's important people hear it.
I will do so then. I'm reading the one that is addressed to Senator Joyce, but they are in fact individual letters to each of our legislators. Dear Senator Joyce, the Board of Selectmen and School Committee thank you and your staff for participating in the September meeting with representatives of the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, to discuss the Statement of Interest, SOI, filed in connection with Stoughton High School. You have seen the high school facilities and you have heard from administrators and teachers who work and teach there every day. You asked for and were provided with a list of the many ways facilities cause inequality in instruction and programming. You have received postcards and letters of support from members of the Stoughton community. Now, the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee add their collective voice with this joint request for your engaged and active assistance advancing the town's SOI with MSBA. As much as any other building in town or any other component of what makes us a community, our high school and the students who pass through its halls measure and identify Stoughton. Recognizing this, the Board of Selectmen and the School Committee ask that you write to MSBA with a strong and clear expression of support. As Stoughton's representative in our state government, we ask that you take each and every opportunity to advance the 2013 Stoughton High School SOI, beginning with a letter addressed to the MSBA prior to its November meeting. Again, thank you for your past support and advocacy for our high school project. Thank you also for your continued support as we move our community forward in 2013. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen and School Committee, it is signed by, will be signed by Mr. Anzavino as chair and myself as chair. And actually, I would like to give Ms. Sauvanet the floor at this point to basically discuss what we have a little bit further down, which is the feasibility, but it ties into this, and I kind of think it lends good background information. So,
well, first off, I just wanted to say that Dr. Rizzi and I went to the State House last week and met with our legislators, and they were incredibly impressed that the Board of Selectmen and School Committee in Stoughton have gotten together and have signed and voted for, and which I assume we will since we had talked about it, a joint letter that Ms. Husseini will be hand delivering. And they particularly noticed they were very impressed and thought it spoke volumes about where we are as a town and the support for a new high school. So that's made a big difference. I can talk about the rest of it later on, but I did want to note that and note how impressed they were by the joint letter that was going to be forthcoming. So I would like to make a motion. I'm sorry, Ms.
No, actually, go ahead and make the motion, and we'll open it for discussion. I can add my comment.
Okay. I would like to make a motion for the purposes of discussion that we approve the letter and authorize Ms. Husseini to sign on behalf of the school committee.
And second.
Thank you. The only thing I would like to add is that everybody had input into the creation of this letter, even though we are absent 2 members tonight, and I did not note that at the beginning of the meeting, that Mr. Recupero was kind enough to take on the task of authoring the letter, and that he solicited input from everybody. So it is safe to assume, and I'm not certain if, because I did not see everybody's input, if everything was in fact combined, but that everybody did have a voice at the table, so to speak. With that, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And I will confirm that what you read is the letter I have.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm a little worried. I will take that for signature. I will scan it and send it back to your secretary, and we will deliver it either tomorrow or most likely Thursday morning, when I know that I will be available to go there at an hour when the senator and the legislators are likely to be there, as opposed to my usual early hour.
When nobody's in town.
Thank you so much. Really,
and we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And good luck.
We appreciate it too. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Mr. Anzavino.
Now we'll pop down to the remainder of our agenda, which goes to parent engagement.
So you have in your packet a brief update. We have 2 parent engagement coordinators, Shantae Thomas and Mary Ann Dawson. And Shantae wrote this most recent update. The 3 high points of the update are that they are scheduling as many of the parent engagement activities on the nights of PTO or PTA meetings, depending on what it's called in the individual schools, so that parents won't have to go out an extra night, and that those who might be interested in coming to the engagement activities might then choose to stay for the meeting, or people who are coming for the meeting might choose to come early for those activities. Also, she wanted everybody to know that our parent liaisons are hired, working, and active in the schools, and parents have all been made aware of that. And I would just like to remind everybody again that the Parent Engagement Center, which was built with help from the YMCA and IKEA and many staff people's volunteer time to put that room together and make a lovely welcoming space for parents and for our coordinators to work, is open 3 mornings a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to noon. And to demonstrate some of the things that they're doing, I'm going to present each of you, and we have some for the absent members as well. This is a small string backpack bag that says Stoughton Parent Engagement Center with the address and the phone number. And it comes with some books that are appropriately chosen for students of different age groups to give to parents so that they can then take them home and their children will have books to read. I picked the very young ones for you. And so I'm going to give these to you, and you can show them around to people. And if you have young children in your family or circle of friends that you'd like to share the books. And all of these materials were gained by our parent coordinators through a competitive grant for which they applied and they received. So there is no district funding involved in the acquisition of these materials.
And these would be available to anybody who came in and engaged with the parent?
Yes, but the coordinators are bringing them to certain parent activities. So there are quite a few of them. I just borrowed a couple, and they'll be distributing them to parents over the next X amount of weeks at various things.
Terrific. Well, I think as I told you, I have a family who's new to town who has a small child that lives in my neighborhood.
There you go.
I'd love to see the
and then they'll find out that there are liaisons, and even if your children are 2 or smaller, it's not a long time until you would have an opportunity to engage with the preschool. So it's never too soon, and the parent coordinators will be very, very happy to see all parents and potential parents.
Great, thank you.
And next.
The next. So we've done
is the
that.
proposed FY15.
The proposed FY15 budget. So, because of the charter in Stoughton, the way it's laid out, the school committee must present a budget to the Board of Selectmen on or before December 31st. That, of course, is right around the holiday time. So, the last meeting for you to consider the budget is December 17th. So this is our first discussion of the budget. The budget this is a starting proposal for you to discuss and think about. It was put together by myself with the input of all of our administrators and many different folks at different levels who we've gone through a whole series of hearings. They had a charge, which was to provide a budget that would indicate to me what they would need to continue level service, which we know is not the same as level funding. And then, based on their school improvement plans, the district improvement plan, and our 3-year plan to move the district towards a world-class system, they were asked to prioritize some of the things that they thought should be next on the list to either replace of the things that we've lost or add to move us in that direction. And then there are some other things that we've had to add into the mix. And those things include the state mandates for continuing implementation of the new educator evaluation system, continuing implementation of the new Common Core standards of curriculum, which in my memo here related to the budget, I described as doing heart surgery on someone in the midst of running a marathon, because the teachers have an entire year of curriculum to teach, much of which is brand new to them. So they're learning it, teaching it, and developing it all at the same time. So this requires a great deal of professional development and a lot of new materials. And so that effort is ongoing, and that is a requirement. All the teachers are having to get the new retail training for sheltered English immersion to teach children who are learning English, not native English speakers. And as we've talked about over time in the last 3 years, our population of non-English speakers has doubled. So this is something that we have to definitely focus on and address, I believe, in a proactive manner. And then we have some other issues that have presented themselves in our scores. We get the scores sooner than we used to. So we have a sense of what our scores are like in August from the previous year, which is much better than we used to get. But it is still too late to incorporate the information from those scores into the budget which was prepared at this time last year. So to address some of the issues related to the subgroups, and then also to address some of the issues that were brought up in our district review. So there are some things there related to that. So when the principals and their school councils developed their school improvement programs, their plans, they knew at the time that if there were things that they wanted to move forward, that those things were going to have to be expressed in the budget process as well, and that they would have to line up, and that they also needed to line up with the district priorities also. So based on that, there is a request here for a budget that would be approximately 3.9% higher than last year's budget. And there are some restored and added positions related to the things that I've just spoken about. And you have a spreadsheet that looks very similar, but of course this is in a kind of initial form of the document that you see every year. And it shows you what we've expended in 13, what we budgeted in 14, and what we propose in 15. And there are some things that are moved around from one line to another, but we've tried to lay it out with everything being placed in somewhere that's logical, so that you would know to look for something in a kind of intuitive manner. And that's something we move forward in every year to try and make it as clear a document as possible. So Ms. Orderitas, our business manager, is here with me tonight to help talk about the money, because we put this together as a joint effort, and there might be some of the questions that she'll be able to help me answer. And so this will give you a place to start thinking.
Before we start getting into questions, a couple of questions for you. And I know that you're not prepared to answer the one, but it's kind of me putting out there what we're trying to do, which is create a place on the website. We've asked Dr. Gray for some help creating a kind of a graphic interface that shows the flow of planning for improvement documents, essentially, that we use within the school system, the different plans that we develop, the different reviews that come in from the state, that, as you mentioned, kind of lead right into the budget process as well, where we get the scores, we determine a plan, and then we budget for that improvement the following year. I have not personally checked in with them, and that is my oversight to see where that effort is at. But I would hope that that is coming very soon. And then likewise, I'm asking, will this draft budget be posted so that people can look for those alignments or see those alignments?
Whenever you think so. I mean, it would have to be posted in a form that's obviously extremely preliminary.
Right. And the reason I guess I bring it up is because when Ms. McNeil spoke, she mentioned a couple of positions like the adjustment coordinator, and those are clearly defined not only in your narrative and in the first chart, but you'll also be seeing them when we address the financial transfers, which lead into that. So I think it's So
you'd like the preliminary draft budget posted in your document section of the website?
Perhaps. I think we'll have to think that through, but I think it'd be worthwhile to have, for people to see those alignments. But we can talk about that further.
Yes, I think it's been designed with that in mind,
yes.
And people will see that.
So with that said, how would you like us to handle going through it? Would you like to go through the sections like administration, instruction? And I'm asking my board as much.
Right. You can have.
Would you like to? I see you have quite outlined questions to the narrative. Would you like to start with that?
There are many sections. If I were to go through the whole thing, it could be rather time-consuming.
I meant
I'm more than happy to do that.
Than small sections. I meant instruction.
Okay, well, the instruction section is the largest portion of our budget, and that's where all of our salaries are. But we have the budget divided up by into approximately the 10 major lines.
Right.
And we see some additions in some and some subtractions in others. Certain things, for instance, you'll see a relatively notable drop in the area of fixed charges. That's where we have unemployment. And while we had a big spike in unemployment for a while, it seems to have fallen off some, so that accounts for some of that. We've had some pretty...
Well, why don't we start like that? I mean, I kind of like with that page that you're on that has the categories, and then it has the percent change. If you would just maybe want to give a brief description, administration, what the percent change is.
the first line is administration, and as we see year after year, when we look at our per pupil expenditure, which in and of itself is relatively low, we see that the administration portion of our per pupil expenditure is also very low compared to other districts. This is a small increase that basically allows for raises in administration that comes up to less than 2%. That's primarily what that increase is. In instruction, the same thing. This is where you see a lot of our, all of our teacher salaries and a lot of our other salaries, and that's why that's the largest line. So there's been taken into account that there might be an increase, of course, with no movement whatsoever in negotiations. That was actually a very, very difficult number to determine. So that was a bit of guesswork. But
that is why it's a preliminary draft budget.
Exactly. There's a jump in the other school services, and I can't remember what that is. And we'll see. I have to find what page it's on. Oh, other. That's there's athletics.
Transportation, hall monitors, student activity stipend positions. There were a couple of areas.
Yes, there's some of those are professional salaries. The nurses are considered other school services. They're not in instruction. So any anticipated raises would be there. Appendix stipends in the appendixes in the contract that are for student activities, there would be an anticipated increase there. We're doing and have been for the last couple of years a tremendous amount of work looking at the security in our buildings and how those can be improved. That's obviously not an instructional category. That would be other student services, and we have
other school services.
So the additional hall monitors are the security in the high school. So there are some things there, and we there's a little bit of an uptick in the cost of officials potentially. So those things are related to athletics.
The after-school bus, is that part of the transportation that's not net school spending, or is that?
Where would we put the, so in the proposal, amongst the things that are in the proposal as new,
buses.
And we've been talking about this in terms of our overall plan for the district, and then it has come up again when we're looking at some of our issues of scores. And then we look at all the research indicating that there's basically not enough time in the day. So you'll see in the proposal, salted through for all of the schools, more money for remediation and enrichment after school. When we had the very significant budget cuts in 08 and 09, one of the first things to go, because of course we prioritized not laying people off, and so we had to look in other areas, the late buses were amongst the things that got cut. But we believe that given that we're going to be asking people to take part in activities after school that are critically related to the curriculum and giving them the opportunity to do that, we don't want transportation to be a barrier. So does that fall under other school services, the late buses? Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted the public to hear that that is one of the plans.
Well,
at this point anyway.
It's, and there are a lot of parents who drive their students, but there are a lot of parents who work and can't do that.
Sure.
So we don't want the fact that children need a way home in the afternoon to be the reason that they don't participate in these things, which when we identify a child through assessments for remediation, or who's behind in reading, or who's been failing in math, and math, for instance, to take as an example, is a very cumulative subject. You really need to address that right away. But we want the fact that there's a way home to make it easy and smooth the way for people to take part in those programs. As I said, the fixed charges are down a little bit down in operations and maintenance. For the most part, we heat with natural gas, and the pricing is quite favorable at the moment, and we anticipate it's going to be. And you'll recall over the last couple of years, Mr. Harding coming in and talking about how all of the lights in all of our buildings were reballasted to use a lot less energy. We were hoping to see, they say there's going to be a savings, and we anticipated there was one, but until we actually saw it, we did not want to reduce that line in the budget, but now we feel we can, because we are seeing savings from that. And then we have had an uptick in our other district spending. That's tuition for out-of-district placements. And unfortunately, we have seen an issue in recent months of students who very badly need attention that is beyond the capacity of our staff to deliver. And I prefer not to speak about that in too much more detail so as not to identify any students. But there were a lot of late out-of-district placements in the spring, many of which we are seeing are continuing into this year.
And does that account for the budget increase right there in that line item of 21%?
It does.
Okay. It's the uptick that we've seen. Okay.
And those things, this is a district that has for many, many years, well before it was the popular thing to do, made a commitment to taking care of its students in-house. And we do. And we have special programs, sub-separate programs of various types in almost every elementary school, actually in all of them, and in the middle school and in the high school. But even with that, it's the student needs that will dictate whether someone needs to be outplaced. And we still need to do some of that.
So the uptick is because you have students already in-house who will continue to need to be placed, which accounts for those that you can predict for next year, and that you still, in fact, put a contingency in for the unknown. That
there is a 10% contingency in this tuition number,
right.
Because, as we've known from fairly recent years, we had a year recently where we had 2 out-of-district placements that amounted to $500,000 a year. And once a student is placed, it cannot be assumed that they're going to move back to the district in the next year.
Is that 10% enough? Because that's about, is that about $250,000?
I believe that it is enough because we will next year, as we do this year, have some circuit breaker money that we can spend only on tuition.
Okay. I have some big picture.
Again, though, I will say this is always a moving target, and we've been fairly good at predicting what our out-of-district budget's going to be. But there will be years where we will just not necessarily hit it on the head. And this last fiscal year that we just ended was one of those, and that's one of the reasons that we had some money to give back to the town.
It's a good point to hit Ms. Sauvaget's questions.
Go for it.
I have big picture and little picture questions. So since we're on the some of the details, I just had 2 questions about 2 of the categories, and that is, well, first off in math, considering
page, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's page 5. Okay. Is that page 5?
Page 5.
So considering the work that we need to do in this area, there is a very small, but a small decrease. And I was just wondering, and it seems that there's also a decrease in instructional supplies and equipment. And I was just wondering, oh, no.
Well, the elementary...
There's an uptick there. It was...
The elementary math supplies we purchase if we need. We have a program now, Envision Math, that's in place. So if we, that's a line for those materials. Mr. Ford got a great many materials when he bought the program. So if those were not requested by our humanities or STEM coordinators, then we didn't feel we needed to increase that line or buy those things at the moment. The drop in salaries has to do with the hiring of newer staff at much lower steps to replace people who have left.
All right. And then the big decrease is in multimedia services.
Those were some shifting. This is always a question of where do you put different folks. So the multimedia service people.
I'm sorry, that's on page 7.
If you flip back to business, you'll see a big uptick in business. So it's a question of whether the multimedia people should be
I see.
considered business
Okay.
because there's graphic arts in that program,
Okay.
there's television production.
Sure.
So we decided that they all belonged in the business ed department.
Okay.
It's just a bookkeeping thing. So what you see down in that line, you'll see up in the business line.
Okay. And then I'd like to go back to sort of the big picture, and that is, so I certainly appreciate that we have a number of new unfunded state mandates that that we need to pay for. There's the educator evaluation, the Common Core standards, the excluded students law. What is retail training?
Retail training is the new approach to, it's not entirely new, the revised approach to teaching students English who are not native English speakers.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And there's an entire training that all teachers now have to go through regardless of whether or not they had the old Sheltered English Immersion training. And they're moving towards making that a piece of licensure now
Okay.
instead of just something nice to do.
Okay.
So if you think that you will have a non-English speaking student walk into your room at any time in the year, you must have this training. Ergo, everyone now must have this training.
Including administrators.
Yes, and there's a whole, this part of our summer retreat this year will be dedicated to training the administrators who will oversee the teachers who have non-English speakers in their classroom, which is potentially, of course, we have to assume everyone.
Okay. You also include under the unfunded state mandates the transition to the new state assessment system. At the school committee conference, I heard horror stories about the cost of this. So where have we accounted for this?
Well, this is keeping pretty much every administrator in the state up at night.
Yeah.
We're still not exactly sure what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
We still don't know if they're absolutely going to adopt PARC. That's the new system that we have potentially
that replaces
ostensibly
MCAS,
signed
right.
on to. We're in somewhat of a better position than some districts because we have better technology and more access to technology in every building than many districts do. Some districts anticipate a up to 5-year building plan of putting Wi-Fi in buildings, getting enough computers for, because ultimately the test is supposed to be all computer-based. And therefore every student needs to have a computer to take the test on when the test is rolled out. But so it's very frustrating. We go to these meetings and the people who are introducing PARC can very often not answer any of our questions. And it's not the most complete initiative that's ever come down the pike from the powers that be. I just bought a T-shirt that says, those who can teach, those who can't pass laws about teaching. I considered wearing it this evening, but I didn't. So we don't exactly know how much it's going to cost, and not entirely, but we have tried to put some money into our professional development curriculum budgets at the district level to address whatever portion that we might need to address this coming year.
Well, that will be an important point to make when we get to FinCom about the...
if Jonathan looks a little grayer to you than he did last year, this may be
this is why.
Of it,
and then you also under goals the restoration of essential services. Now, what would you describe as the restoration of essential services?
When we had to do the very significant cuts during the recession, there are things that we've had an opportunity to now observe and see which things were able to survive relatively intact and which things were not. I believe the early childhood coordinator for the special ed administration is crucial. They just can't manage with the loss of that position. And so that would absolutely be essential. Of all of the things, I would say that's the thing that we've noticed the most. And then the late buses and the ability to offer things after school, I'd say, is something that we need to replace.
But it's not a restoration.
It is not.
Okay.
The point four of a guidance counselor, a person was cut
That's true. We
to
used to have the late buses.
half-time is one. The adjustment counselor restored to the elementary schools is another. Some of the things, the special education teachers in the secondary schools, we lost through attrition, and so it's time to put those jobs back.
And I do appreciate the goals of the plan, the extra time on learning for both remediation and enrichment, the late buses that are needed, particularly for that. I appreciate that the advanced students will get access to extra challenges. How does that play out in the budget?
In all of the places where we have money for extended day,
yes,
some of it is for remediation and some of it is for enrichment.
Okay.
There are many ways that that's playing out in the curriculum now. Our Walk to Read groups are based on students who are on level, students who need particular help with reading, the elements of learning to read, and students who are advanced, who can engage with material that's more advanced than their reading level. So there are many ways in the curriculum now where we're addressing those needs of the students in the classroom, but an opportunity to do additional science projects, work with teachers with material in just a deeper way is reflected in the money for after-school programs. You'll see that the money for remediation, actually the numbers are a little bigger than the enrichment numbers, and we felt we had to structure it that way, but that's where you'll find it.
And then I see for special education subgroup, there are 6 new positions.
If you count the reading teachers, the special education teachers, the adjustment counselor, the early childhood coordinator was an administrative one. The teaching assistant in the West School, that was another position we lost through attrition, and will provide, excuse me, I'm getting a cold, more inclusion services for students over there.
Okay, all right. And you also talk at the end about the changing demographic and the number of students in poverty, as well as the number of students whose first language is not English, has doubled in the last 3 years.
Yes. The alt ed teacher proposed here is also to address some needs in special education. Alt ed in our high school is some special ed and some general ed, but definitely students who need additional levels of help. And we've been having a half sharing a teacher, half dean of discipline, half alt ed program, and particularly with the Excluded Students Law, Chapter 222 coming online, we just need to fill in that program. We need 2 full teachers in that program.
Okay.
And so that is also, although there are some non-SPED students in alt ed, a lot of them are students who have IEPs.
Okay, and then moving on to the proposed new positions and programs, you've talked about most of them. How many does that come out to? 1, 2, 3,
How many total
4,
positions in the budget?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is it 11 and a half?
Well, I have 12.4.
As you counting the guidance counselor as a half, I think so.
Okay. Now I know that you have a great working relationship with the town manager and on the municipal side. I'm just wondering if you've coordinated, if the 2 of you have coordinated.
We've been talking about it. We've been talking about philosophy. We've been talking about format and means of presentation. And they actually like the way our budget looks and how it reads. And they're interested in following a similar format this year. And now that you've seen this, and I get a little sense from you of where you're landing on this, I'm going to meet with them this week. Their schedule's a little different from ours because they don't need to have their budget ready at the same time as we do. But I think that they are moving towards something of a similar procedure as far as the town manager doing hearings with his administrators and so on. So we're doing a lot of talking about it, and it's our goal, if it is possible for us to meet all of our needs, doing some form of a joint presentation. That's a place that we hope to be able to get. And the devil's always in the details, but that's certainly something that we are planning on working toward, assuming that it meets everybody's needs. And of course, my role is to make sure that it meets our needs.
And probably the last question I have for now, I'm sorry.
Oh, you asked a great question.
Is the curriculum coordinators, the humanities and the STEM curriculum coordinators for the elementary schools, what will they be doing exactly differently from what our district-wide coordinators do? And do you anticipate the addition of any more STEM and humanities coordinators, like for middle school?
At any point in the future?
Right.
Well, right now, the two that we have, and this is their second year, they are district-wide, but that's actually too much work for two people. And I would say it's too much work for two people under the old circumstances, but far too much work for two people under the current circumstances, because they are each responsible for curriculum for 13 grades, all of which is changing radically. But the other function that they serve is as part of the evaluation team. Exactly. So all of the teachers who used to get 1 or 2 max observations a year now have a minimum of 4. But they also have to work with their evaluators on standards. They have to work with their evaluators on amassing evidence that they have met all of their goals. There's goal setting. With every observation, you have to have written feedback. You have to have a conversation with every teacher. So the work of observing and evaluating has more than quadrupled for our administrators. And we know, because we see it, but also our per pupil expenditure supports it. We're very, very light in administration, and in a way we kind of got away with that until now. We have so many observations and evaluations for administrators to do that they literally can work 12 hours a day and do nothing else to fulfill that new obligation. So if we split the curriculum coordinators, elementary and secondary, then the folks that we have can concentrate on the 2 secondary schools and those curricula. And in a sense, this is a replacing of jobs that we lost in 08 and 09, because we did have a math science unit B curriculum coordinator for K-8. That was a position that Ms. Mulvey held.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
And when she got the principal's job at the South, we just simply didn't fill that job, so we lost that job then. And we had 2 district-wide elementary reading coaches who were 1.75 people. And when they left, we didn't replace them. So this is a slightly newer version of 2 jobs that we had, and the reason it's altered from what we had is to fulfill the need of observations and evaluations. And actually, when Ms. Mulvey was the math science coordinator, she was able to observe and evaluate, but the need is much more acute now.
So can I ask how this is going to play out? Because is this position actually humanities and STEM evaluators, actually?
Well, the curriculum coordinators that we have now, they are Unit B members. They are licensed to observe and evaluate, and they have that role now. So this will be essentially duplicating what they do, but then they can focus on the secondary, and we can have elementary people. So the curriculum coordinators now have an evaluative role in addition to their role developing curriculum and working with the teachers on that.
So are these going to be primarily curriculum coordinators or primarily evaluators? Because it sounds like the need is really in evaluation. So,
well, as the people who are doing it now, the need really is both, because curriculum is still in the process of being developed, and while we are far ahead of a lot of districts in this regard, the curriculum isn't done, and groups of teachers are going to have to be continuing to write curriculum, and they will be supervising that work.
Okay.
But the evaluating and observing is a huge piece of what they do now and will continue to be. But we can't ignore the curriculum piece because, I mean, and again, when they roll out all of these things at the same time, brand new curriculum and a brand new evaluation system are both really taxing. It would be very difficult for me to say which one is more important.
And who would they report to?
Mr. Ford and myself.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, and actually, I just want to kind of go on the evaluation theme for a second and kind of differentiate between elementary and then secondary, if you would, in that, and this is purely my perception, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but at the elementary level, the bulk of the observation typically falls to the principal, and you're talking about 4 observations for each teacher, and that teacher would not necessarily be observed 4 times on social studies, they would be observed across the board. So the observation, if you will, is slightly more intense, or curriculum specific, I should say, at the secondary level. That would involve the curriculum directors more because of their specialty than it does at the elementary school, giving these elementary curriculum people a chance to also work on coaching, developing curriculum alignment.
And our current curriculum coordinators also do coaching.
Okay, I just wanted to, because that was, again, my perception. Dr. Brown.
I just have a question, because I hear a lot of with Ms. McNeil talking about positions in reference to special needs or 766 program. How many positions are we adding in their general area, please?
Eight 8.4.
So,
although some of them have some overlap, the reading teachers will also serve students who are not special ed, although I counted them when you asked me to count them. The alt ed teacher will serve some students who are not special ed, but these 2 special ed teachers, the early childhood coordinator, the adjustment counselor primarily will work with students who are on IEPs, but that, again, if a student is in some kind of distress in a building, obviously they will address that too. And the teaching assistant in the West, those are all special ed related positions.
So we're saying for the public, we are adding 8.4 positions to the special needs department?
If I counted correctly, yes.
Out of the 11.4 total.
And given that some of them, like the reading teachers and the alt ed teacher, will not exclusively serve the special ed community.
Okay, so I just want the viewing public to understand that we have taken in consideration that there's questions that pops up from the audience always about special needs and what we're not doing. I just want to make everybody aware that we have added 8.4 positions to support the special ed department in Stoughton Public Schools.
And what people don't necessarily understand about special ed, and when people talk about a parent group, or every single child has a parent or a guardian as part of their special education team. And so every parent is deeply involved in the entire process of their team. And it is those teams that decide what each of those individual children need. And then we take all of those things and bring in the services and the staff related to what those kids need as is determined at a team meeting. So every single parent gets to weigh in on what they believe their children need. And then the district builds that staff based on that. But our additional concerns district-wide, bigger picture, have also contributed to us putting these positions in, yes.
So you're saying it's a collaboration between administrative staff and parents who bring these new positions forward. So everybody's actively involved.
Yes, because they're
forth these positions.
Every single special education child has a special education team, and every one of those teams has a parent or parents who are deeply involved in the decisions of those teams. So that's really where the needs of special education students are addressed.
Because as a school committee member, I keep hearing this come up in the audience. I just want to put clarity on this. That, you know, we have taken all this into consideration and we are working towards that goal to get more support in the special needs departments in Stoughton Public Schools. I just need to put that out there for the public.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That's just, this is your time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I've I've gotten the big picture, I've gotten some of the details, and we'll continue the conversation.
And we have to look at this, and we have some tweaking more to do. You know, it's a very, very big budget, and we'll look at it again, make sure we get everything right. We might be able to, now the thing that we do is go and see if we can shave off anywhere else. We've done some shaving as it is. But we'll continue to do that and look at every single thing over again, because there are many, many, many lines.
We dragged you out tonight and not giving you a chance to speak. And I guess, this is not a first budget by far for you, but a first budget in the Stoughton school system. And I know that as we've gone through changes before, we've had the chance for the business manager to put their kind of mark and organize things the way they see. This looks very much format-wise like previous budgets. I just want to know that you're comfortable with it, that you are...
It is very different from the other budgets I've done. It's by department. I have done them by schools, but
okay.
This is the way we're going to do it, and I don't mind at all. And
I do like to see, like we've seen in the past, where the new positions are, the pluses,
This is not a color document, but we will do what we did last year, which is to make a color for everything that's been moved, a color for everything that's new, and we'll continue. I don't actually think it's in this version, but
the grant funded,
the positions that are grant funded, so that they'll all have zeros because the district does not pay for them. But when you see a difference in the number of teachers, say in the STA, versus the number of teachers that are in this budget, if you add them up, it's because there's a discrepancy between the number that is district funded and then if you add the number that's also grant funded. So people have liked to see that in the past, so we're going to do that this time too. We'll continue with some of those things.
I'll let Ms. Sylvan, we come to the microphone because we did say that the public would have input, but while he's coming, please go ahead with your question.
No, let Mr. Soares go. And it was just a question before our school business manager, Ms. Hortizaitis, leaves. I just wanted to jump to item, just for part of item 8, if you wouldn't mind, since it involves finances.
Is it possible I could get a copy of the budget?
Well, like I said, we're going to talk about posting it.
Okay.
And if we do, I know you're not a big web person, but we can make sure that you get a copy as well.
I would appreciate that very much, because I have absolutely almost no idea what you're talking about.
And I understand, and this is kind of for us a first glance at it as well, and a chance for us to kind of put our mark on it before we release it.
Thank you very much.
And answer our questions answered. Thank you. And back to you, Ms. Sylvan.
If there are no more questions on the budget, do you mind if I just jump forward? Because we don't want to keep you...
That's fine.
Okay. So I just wanted to jump to item 8, which is about the MASC conference, the Mass Association of School Committees. And I just wanted to just get some idea. There was a... session that I went to that was sponsored by MASBO, the Mass Association of School Business Officials, and one of the services that they offer is a financial operations review. And I was just wondering if you've ever been involved in a district that did that. It's different from an audit. It's not an audit, and they review the budget document, financial system, payroll, cash management, student activities accounts, financial reporting, and control points such as purchasing, which they absolutely are adamant is done at the school or department level. They might have been really useful to us a couple of years ago. But I'm just wondering if you...
I have heard about it. I know Needham Public Schools did do it last year. I was reading about it. The cost is about $5,000.
Yeah.
So I mean,
they did say that, and I don't know that now is the time. I just wanted to know because I didn't realize that they offered this, and I was really kind of fascinated by it, and just thought it might be useful. Certainly help with regard to helping citizens be aware how transparent our system is, and we'd have the review that would stand behind us. So I'm sorry to throw you a curveball. like that, but I just wondered if in your previous district jobs.
I've never had one myself done as a business manager, and maybe down the road we could maybe look at it, I would say.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
right now it's not the time, I don't think.
No, now
getting
it's not
to
the
know
time.
the system.
Yeah, we're not going to do that too. I just wanted some feedback.
I have to see what the internal audits are.
Okay.
With the town, I haven't really looked at them to see what the town, if the town audits the school department.
Okay.
So I'd like to look at that also.
Okay, so here's, I have duplicate information, so.
Thank you.
That's the PowerPoint that the MASBO folks gave out. So thank you very much. Appreciate you coming here.
And actually, since we've, I think at this point, wrapped up the budget, I don't know if you would like Maria to still be here for the financial transfer, if we want to skip down to that.
I'll stay with financial.
We can just go right into that if you want to.
Great.
If it's all right to leave 7.
We will come back to 7.
A little bit
We'll
later.
come back to 8 as well, because
There'll be more to talk about from the conference. Okay, so the question of the financial transfer. Occasionally, usually at the end of the year, it has been necessary for me to ask for a transfer from one line to another from the school committee. So the way your budget is arranged in those lines, as long as we do the spending within the lines, we don't need to ask you for a transfer. But if we're going to move money from one of the lines to another, we do. And when we've done that, I would say maybe 3 out of the last 5 years, we've asked for a transfer at the end of the year, when we've seen that there's money left in a line that we could use in another area. This year, we've, and this is a bit of a departure from former practice, asking you to do a transfer now, which is actually quite early in the year. But as I mentioned before, we get our scores after the budget is set and just before the school year begins. And we've seen some things in our scores this year that we would like to be able to address related to some of our subgroups and some areas of growth that we have, or lack of growth in certain areas, and some things that were not budgeted for or that we did not anticipate when we put the budget together. In the out-of-district tuition line, I believe that we will have enough money using last year's circuit breaker money, which has to be spent this year, to backfill the out-of-district tuition line, and we can take about $520,000 from that line, move it to instruction, and address some needs that have come up since the budget was built. So the first things that you see, the early childhood coordinator, the elementary guidance counselor, .4, and the adjustment counselor, we've just talked about in the budget proposal for FY15. The reason that they're in there is I believe that we need to reestablish those things now due to needs that have come up in terms of student behavior, concerning student behavior for the adjustment counselor, very significant issues of overwork for the special administration staff, for the early childhood coordinator, and the needs of the special program at the Hanson for the .4 guidance counselor. But if we transfer for those things now, we will lose them if they're not included in next year's budget proposal. So I'm hoping we can do them now, and then that they will survive the budget process and be continued into next year as well. Some of these other things are related to remediation. We see issues in both the middle school and in the elementary schools that we would like to be able to have some funds to address right now. And there were certain things that we weren't able to get last year, and some things that have come up because of issues related to voluntary activities and so on. So there are a few things in here that were not anticipated. You'll see 3, and this says after school. That's a misprint. It's afternoon kindergarten aides. These are for the Daw School, where they had an influx of kindergartners in August, and suddenly in September had classes of 22, 23, and 24, when we were not in a position to either add another teacher or have had budgeted for aides. So, and our people are looking at the data still, We have not finished analyzing all the MCAS scores and what they mean and what we really need to do to address those issues. And I know that we will be able to afford to move the money from the out-of-district line to the instruction line, and this leaves us some ability to be responsive as the staff comes up with recommendations for the things that they have just learned since the late summer or the beginning of the school year. So that is the rationale for that, and I would rather do it now than wait till the end of the year when we know we have the money left over, but we have had an entire year that's gone by that we have not been able to address these things. Dr. Brown.
So we're trying to do something proactive that's going to support education now, and that we can, by us doing it this year, we'll have continuity for next year, you're saying?
Yes.
I just wanted to understand that. Thank you.
And it is unusual to have a transfer request of this size this early in the year, but
Yes. Understanding,
again, that with the improvement planning process, which was in response to the scores, which all just kind of played out at the beginning of the year, my numbers were roughly, of the 520.5 thousand, that 434 of it is almost directly related still to special education. Or
yes, and or other kinds of remediation.
Right.
We would not exclude non-special ed students.
So what do you have that 424,000?
434,000.
434 is related to special ed?
Out of the 520?
Okay.
Yeah.
Or remediation of general ed students who are having trouble, because some of the middle school remediation or elementary remediation may be students who we would like them not to become special ed students if they get intervention early enough.
So again, it's proactive.
Yeah.
Right. And I just wanted to put that out there for a sense of scale.
Okay.
Question, Governor?
So what I want to understand is, since this is circuit breaker money that is earmarked for special ed tuition, can the remaining less than 100,000, can that be legally used for other
This
needs?
transfer is of district money from the special ed tuition line.
Okay.
And the circuit breaker money from last year, which must be spent this year, can only be spent on special ed tuition.
Okay.
So the special ed, this money will be replaced by circuit breaker money in the sped tuition line, because it's got to be dedicated to that.
Okay.
Since this is district money, it can be redistributed to other things.
Okay.
The circuit breaker money cannot be.
Gotcha.
So the circuit breaker money, in essence, will backfill this money.
Okay. So, so we'll still have a contingency for the remainder of the year?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And the other question I have is, there's 200,000 here to address the achievement gap issues as identified through MCAS analysis. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, as we've gotten the scores that came out in August from last year, it's a fairly big amount, but some of our professional development trainers that teachers might ask for. So some of the issues that we saw were in the high needs subgroup. Almost all districts see this. Our high needs subgroup, particularly the special ed portion of that subgroup, where we saw some really quite low numbers in the given school, but in some other places as well. And then we have some, and this overlaps. They're not discrete groups. You find people who, they might be special ed, they might also be low income, they might be other reasons that they're in a high needs group. But we have seen some issues in our math growth scores. So we want to be able to address issues of special ed students. We also want to be able to address issues of students having problem in math. Some of them might be special ed students, and some of them might not be. But we want to be able to have the option of being responsive if an elementary teacher wants someone to come in and do professional development with them, or workshops, or additional time with Bill Atwood, who's a consultant that we use quite a lot, but it's fairly expensive. Our retired teachers who do tutoring for us, we want to be able to pay them to the max that they can work, because we know they're effective with our faculty. As they get deeper into the reasons for these issues, we might find that the faculty is going to be asking for certain kinds of materials. And one one set of books or supplementary materials for a grade level can be fairly expensive.
Exactly.
So we want the opportunity to be able to respond. And if you look at this as a percentage of our overall budget, it's a big number, but it's actually a very small percentage of the money we spend on instruction. So this will just give us an opportunity to be able
To
to
do
give
some
people
extra things
what they ask for as they really drill down into what the data is telling them. And they might say, oh my goodness, our elementary teachers really need work on the new math program because the professional development didn't follow the change to the new math program as in certain areas. And there are many things that have been moved in the curriculum from one place to another. So we think that they may have needs emerge. In fact, I'm sure they're going to, that we've not been able to identify yet since we've only been looking at these scores for the last 8 weeks.
I love the idea of the iPads for special education, particularly since I had talked to Ms. Tucker about this several years ago, and she had showed me some of the programming, particularly for autistic kids. It's fantastic.
And again, I'm going to go back to the team process and the question of whether or not where this decision comes from is from teams with individual parents and individual families. So if the staff knows that there are programs that these machines can provide that will really help students in particular areas, they want to be able to provide those things. So it's not something that comes from a recommendation from a PAC group. It comes from the needs that emerge from team meetings. And so a lot of these decisions are made in a team meeting. It's not necessarily something that becomes public, but then the staff brings the needs to our attention.
And this is an absolutely tiny amount, but I am just curious about it. The $15,000 for school entrance monitors at the high school.
This is not a special ed issue. This is a security issue, and the way the door is in place in relation to the office, and how far away people are looking through a kind of a grainy camera way from, I don't know, 50 yards down the hallway. Or so we wanted to reopen the window and the booth right at the high school door between the doors of the vestibule so that people can be vetted and checked in before they even get into the building. And this was something that emerged from our work that we did with our security consultants and our evaluation of where we are with those things. I consider it to be crucial. Short money, but crucial.
I want to say short money for security.
Yeah,
for
no,
high school.
I just wanted to understand what was going on. And with regard to the 2.5 new positions that are in here, do those amounts include? That's just salary. That doesn't include benefits or anything like that. So the cost is likely to be.
Well, this is the way all of our positions are set up in the budget, and then the cost of health care is included in that joint account, which is all of the health care for all of the staff of both the municipal side and the school side.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback off Ms. Sylvani in reference to the $15,000 for high school security. Low money for security of a building. I think this is a low price.
It's a very big building, and we had hall monitors who monitor the hallways, and they do a really, really nice job. But these folks are at the front door, and they take people's driver's license when they come in. And
very important.
So it's in a new building. The office might be situated in a very different relationship to the front door, but the way ours is, this really seemed a good way to address
I just like the fact that we're being secure. In reference to the achievement gap, issues in reference to $200,000. So you're saying that as we continue to look at the MCAS scores, this money is going to be here proactively to utilize in case we need it for something that we find in reference to subgroups?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, those are my two questions.
That is all. I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer.
Motion to approve the transfer.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So we are now, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No need to stay for the rest. We're going to hop back to item number 7, which is an update on the Communication Strategies Workshop attended by Ms. Sobonnet and Dr. Brown.
Can I just pass these down?
Yes, please. I'm dying to hear about it.
It's very interesting. We enjoyed ourselves.
Yes, we did.
If it's just take one, is that?
one,
okay.
yeah.
We're doing that now. And we're going to do it tomorrow.
Debbie, you want to start?
No, why don't you start?
Sure,
You
okay.
you put this together, so
But tell us first about what this was and how it came to be.
You
And
know what? You can do that part and I'll jump in on the rest of it.
well, I'll just start then. Yeah, okay, all right. This was about strategic communications for school committees, and what that actually means is how important it is to tell our story and to tell the story of where we are as a district, where we want to go, and where we've been. And a big part of what we do as school committee members is advocacy, and we advocate for our district, not only at the state level, as Dr. Rizzi and I did last week, but most importantly at the local level. And one of the things that they emphasized, and this was organized by the Mass Association of School Committees, is that if you don't tell your story, others will. And so we do need to tell our story. It builds relationships with the communities, within the community. It's increases our visibility and awareness. It allows us, it helps us to attract quality staff, develop partnerships within and without the community. And an example of how we got our story out was the email that we received last spring from State Treasurer Steve Grossman when he heard about the financial literacy requirement that would soon come into play at the high school. Communicating what we do and where we've been also improves investment and support, community confidence, and above all, it focuses on our children. So those are sort of like the broad things of how important it is that we continuously tell what we do as a district and what we need to do. And as Ms. Husseini and I know, it was really apparent last spring when we were part of the Master Planning Focus Group how much work we had to do, because there was an awful lot of things that the people in the focus group suggested that, in fact, most of the things that we were already doing but they were not aware of.
Right.
So in reference to telling the story, thanks. You did it all.
No.
So in reference to telling the story, to tell the district stories, we had Christopher Horan, who was one ex-Boston Public School person. So he showed us all our data, which was comprehensible to me because I recognized it. But you know, telling the district stories, the best person or people to tell the story are our children. If we have, he was talking about having communication internships for our students to tell the district stories. We want to get something else versus us being the adults, the school committee or the administration. Have the kids tell the story. Have the teachers tell the stories. Have our business partners, selectmen, or any other elected officials can tell the story. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's coming from this board that they're always hearing from on TV. It's like somebody else saying, look, this is what really goes on. I can't think of a better person, I think you two, than a kid to tell the story.
Yeah.
Because once it comes from
absolutely.
them, it's genuine. They're never going to be elected at a kid's age. So they're just speaking what they generally go through on a daily basis. The teachers too. The teachers, I watched the administrators come in here, the principals for different schools, and they were telling their story. And I'm just hoping that everybody was listening to it because they was telling a real good story. They're saying that we're not doing this at the Gibbons, but they didn't look at the fact that it was one group that was kind of swaying their scores. They're doing an excellent job over there. And another thing they started talking about was the things that we need to talk about to educate our parents. And he did a Gallup poll. I think you might remember this Gallup poll he did. it says that 62% of people never heard of the Common Core. So you have parents coming to school every day. They're not realizing that the kids are, the standards are based on Common Core, and it's a statewide standard. It says 57% have never heard about Race to the Top. And we're on TV talking about the RTTT money, and nobody knows what that means. 58% oppose requiring teachers' evaluations to include students' test scores. So all these different things that we're not doing in the vein of communication, we need to start doing to get our story told the correct way. Am I right, Deb?
Yeah, that's absolutely, you're explaining it perfectly. Some of the strategies that they mentioned, aside from things that we have talked about, is having the superintendent talk to real estate groups, to have 5 or 10 minutes of good news from the superintendent at every meeting, having a Stoughton Public School Facebook page. And, you know, Facebook is really used by, you know, adults now. The college age and high
about that later.
and high school students are using it a lot less. But those are really the kind of people that we need to reach with our message. And they made that point, you know, that Facebook page is now used by different us. But those are the people that, you know, we need to reach with our message. And the final thing that they talked about is the school committee should have a unified voice. That you know, we are a group. We, you know, come to our meetings. We disagree. We argue. But then ultimately, we have to come to a consensus and speak with a unified voice. Otherwise, what you have is a kind of a dissonance that goes out to the community, and it's part of what causes a community to lose confidence in its school system.
But the amazing thing about it that you all need to know, that every school board, and I was kind of taken back, I think she was too, that every school committee has a person or two who just go the opposite way. And I was just taken back because I wasn't aware. I'm new to this year. But every single board has one person who goes the opposite way. So that was a big thing for me to take in. Because I just thought, you know, this didn't happen. So being naive, being, you know, so we do have to have a united front. We do talk, have our meetings, our closed meetings, but in the finality of it, we have to come out as a board that all gets along with. Cohesiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. It sounds excellent. I'm sorry I missed it.
That's the good one.
I did.
Yeah. So we are looking forward. So we are going to begin looking at resumes for the halftime communications specialist that we budgeted for and was approved at last town meeting. You know, because you know, we do need to continue to move forward. And what was interesting to me is, and I think to both of us, is to discover how many school districts have a communications person. It's not about public relations. That's not what it's about. It's not about whitewashing or glossing over anything. It's about getting the message out about what we do, how we do it, and what our and where we're going as a district.
And showing the things that we shine on. We know we're so busy talking about budgets and we're so busy talking about Common Core. We forget to tell the public what we do well. And this is what they're missing. They want to hear that their little daughter had this, you know, this thing going on in her school and she was the A student, or she did well in math and she got this award. The parents need to hear this. The people in our community need to hear this.
Yeah, I'm sure wish we could get our high school reps back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I actually made a note of that to talk to the principal about that this week.
Yeah, I would like to have more students coming to our meetings. I mean, we have the last couple of years, but there's so much going on and so much good news going on, and it would be great to have the students here
It just gives us, and much like having the teachers here earlier, it gives us a connection to what's really happening from the perspective of the people who it's happening.
I enjoyed having the teachers here. I think this is great. I feel right at home when they're all sitting around.
I bet you do. Bet you do. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity, if we're done with this, to segue this right into the MASC thing, because the one thing that struck me on your list of the Gallup poll items are the 62% who've never heard of the Common Core and those who've never heard of the Race to the Top. We, Deborah and I, attended different days, overlapped a little bit, and you were not able to make it to the of the MASC, which is the Mass Association of School Committees, and the Mass Association of School Superintendents Joint Conference. Last year was my first year going. I think you'd been twice. And wonderful program of speakers, but the one that this segues so nicely into is we had at the opening night dinner had a speaker who was a history teacher from, and I'll look at what high school she was from,
East Hampton.
East Hampton, who spoke because her topic was the Gettysburg Address, which was given to her. She's a history teacher. It was perfect. It is the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address.
On November 19th of next week.
Which is a profound document, that speech that lasted all of 2 minutes and is 10 sentences and was incredible. But she spoke on the Gettysburg Address as it related to teaching it via the Common Core. And I think, sitting where we sit, all we hear are the criticisms of the Common Core, how it's being forced on us and how we need to adapt and how we need to change our curriculum and align it. And she kind of approached it from the other end, where she had taken the opportunity to how delivery of the Gettysburg Address, for example, by using primary sources and secondary sources, and how instruction is different around it, but how it is actually so much better. She brought it alive, and it was so amazing to hear this one young person's perspective on it, that it really kind of turned it around. Now, I know we don't expect our parents to know all of the lingo. We didn't expect them to know the intricacies of the math frameworks. We didn't, but to know that it exists and to know that we're heading into something which, for all the publicity that you hear that's negative, there really are some strengths.
There are some strengths.
So my takeaway from the speakers were, first of all, the speakers across the board were very dynamic, but we all had an opportunity to attend a couple of different sessions, and I just want to, without rehashing mine at all, mine apparently, after I looked at them, all seem to focus on data. Imagine that. It's a comfortable place for me to go. But there were some great tips and great panels, and a lot of mine, again, had some of the MASBO speakers who were the data specialists, who talked about being able to use your data to demonstrate your links between your dollars and diplomas. So it's being able to show why the data shows, with our either socioeconomic, demographic, or whatever else the population says, and our scores, what we can actually align to data, and what type of data that helps us support and paint a true picture, because everybody throws snippets of data out as if they're fact, and data is in fact, but used in isolation, it's also mistruth sometimes, or it doesn't illustrate it correctly. So some great tips on where to find data and how to accumulate data that really best shows that picture, and who you should be comparing yourself to when you do that, so that you're getting a true picture. Advocacy strategies was tremendous. In that it just played so closely to what is happening right now, and actually literally right now at the time. I believe you guys were at the State House when I was attending that one, in terms of how we really are advocates, whether we like it or not. Our role here as elected officials, we all tend to go to where we're comfortable, but we need to be in that place where we are just leveraging all of our resources, including our other larger elected offices, to help us not just attain a new high school, but to talk about the direction of education and the direction of the Common Core and what it means to us. Then there was, and actually, Baseline Edge was brought up in your mentoring program. Is that as a tool that we currently have? Yes. Do we have the benchmarking module of that? We have it all. We have it all. Well, we went through Mary DeLay from Reading, who it sounds like somebody who worked very closely with the people at Benchmark Edge to work on the benchmarking, Baseline Edge to work on the benchmarking tool, just ran through some great examples. And I know that if we have it all, you've certainly been using it all because you're the data guru here, but there were some, just again, great tips on how to benchmark us against other towns again that are comparable and be able to communicate that information to the public. But what you all missed, well, my favorite part of it was Leadership Isn't for Cowards. It's a new book by Michael Staver, and he gave one of the most dynamic speeches I have ever seen. And at some point I'll look up. I saw a YouTube link that shows one that's quite similar of one of his, and I'll send it on because it's absolutely incredible and a lot to be learned, and had us all laughing. I'd like you to cover yours, or give me a highlight.
Just briefly, the three that I want to talk about. Well, I already talked about the financial operations review that I'd like to get some more information about and see if folks are interested. It does come with a hefty price tag. I went to a session on federal and state mandates regarding transition services for students with disabilities. It was practical resources and tools. The focus was the King Philip Regional District, and where they absolutely embrace transition services, and their presentation was about both the cost savings and helping the students have meaningful lives. So I thought it was, and I'm not sure, I have actually no idea what we do for transition services here, but I do have, I did get some materials. It was a wonderful presentation by both the coordinators as well as one parent who had a child transition, and they absolutely embrace this. So, I'll probably talk to Ms. Tucker maybe a little bit about this.
It's another one of those things we do that nobody knows about.
Right. All right.
Because nobody's telling our story.
Because nobody's telling our story.
Right.
Tell our story.
So,
a lot of people doing a lot of great work that don't necessarily then talk about it.
Some of us need to go to conferences like this and do presentations and talk about what we do as a district.
That's the point of them and why it's worth it.
And that is the point of the communications workshop, is that folks I know it's a lot of work because I've done a bunch of them myself in my other professional life, but it's really important to kind of let your peers know what's going on, because then people like me come back and say, look what King Philip is doing for their transition services. So
we are probably doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yes, right. And then the other thing, which is was the advocacy session on which turned out to be all about how to lobby your legislators. So it was incredibly useful. It was really perfect. There was serendipity at work there because the very next day, Dr. Rizzi and I went to the
That's right. You right. I forgot you read that one as well.
Yeah. I'll talk more about that later. But so it was very good. It was very energizing, and I came back with some practical tips and resources.
And it's a shame that we all can't. I know that your professional schedule didn't allow you to take the time away from work to do it. And if you ever have the opportunity, we'd love you to.
Yeah.
It is likewise in my profession. If I'm paid to go to something, I am expected to come back and deliver a brown bag, a session.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right.
But short of that, we are moving on to, night is wearing on, number 10, correspondence, of which I don't believe I have any.
I don't have any.
It needs to stop. And then old business. Under old business, we could probably breeze through many of these. I have nothing on. Facilities update, we are actually meeting tomorrow. The facilities committee is still, continues the process of condensing all the information from our tours and all of the other information, which is underway, along with some updates on the accelerated repair issues, which I'm sure will be a topic of discussion tomorrow. And do you have more under feasibility?
I do, in fact. So last week was a very busy week. I had a conversation with our MSBA case manager, and we will add Did we already send the updated information on repairs at the high school, which the estimated repairs now total over 24 million, and we also sent the impact of the impact of the facility on curriculum, instruction, and programming.
Will we be
So-
sending this letter to them as well, this joint letter?
Oh, you know what? I think that's a great thing to do. So yes, I think that's very important. Last week I reached out to former town manager Joseph Feaster, who put me in touch with former Senator Mo Cowan, and Dr. Rizzi and I had 2 conference calls with Senator Cowan, and he offered his thoughts and great advice. And after that phone call, we made appointment with our legislators at the State House, Representative Kafka, Representative Galvin, and Senator Joyce. And they've been working hard on our behalf, reaching out to the MSBA. We met with Senator Joyce's Chief of Staff, and Senator Joyce has told his Chief of Staff that Stoughton High School, a new Stoughton High School, is one of his highest priorities. They also told us that letters, emails, postcards, and phone calls are making a difference. They each have a database tracking the support and those who have responded. And as I said previously, they were all very impressed by the Joint School Committee Board of Selectmen letter that is coming, and thought it spoke volumes about where we are as a town and support for a new high school. So I will ask anybody who's listening to please continue to contact our legislators. Send any one of us emails. I can get postcards out to anybody who would like a postcard.
We have them, all kinds of them.
Yeah.
There are also postcards for anyone who wanted to pick them up at Windsor Tire.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Petrie has been
Great.
kind enough to put them
Oh,
out
that's
in case
wonderful.
anyone is near there, not near
that's
where we are,
perfect.
or happens to be in that area. It's a high traffic area. So
Well, that
here,
speaks volumes to what the business
there.
community understands and the impact of a new school would have economically on the community.
Did you have anything that you wanted to add about our meetings last week?
No, I think it's important that we went. It's important that we continue to talk to those folks, and that each of us in our role play whatever part we can in moving this effort forward. And I certainly think our representatives in their role are doing their part. And we have to continue to help them, and they have to continue to help us. And I think that they're doing that, and we're just going to keep working on it every single day as hard as we possibly can.
And I'm really pleased by just the conversations of the last day or two with, I know, the principal of the South School with you and a teacher who had reached out for some information involving the children in an exercise, if you will, an academic exercise on letter writing and on advocacy. And I think it's just a great empowerment, great opportunity to involve these kids, not only in the, how to write a letter, a persuasive letter, but also how to understand more about the civics, about their state and local government. And I think there's some great opportunities, and I'm very, very pleased with the initiative of the individuals involved to do that. So I really appreciate it.
It's all
Thank you.
related to the Common Core, and it's related to our emphasis on writing and how writing develops thinking.
Yeah, I love that they got the legislators talked about and loved the letters that they got from like 7th graders.
Yes.
So it's terrific.
Anything else? On the next 2, wellness and school committee retreat, I actually have nothing this week. I have not touched base with Ms. Small, and I will not go on to the school committee retreat stuff until I have the full board back and we work on the subcommittees. So did not seem appropriate tonight. Number 12 is the acceptance of minutes from the regular meetings of August 27th and September 10th. So on the meeting of August 27th, for which we were all present and the 3 of us would represent a quorum, do I have?
Motion to approve the minutes of August 27th,
A second.
2013.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Let me get my way to the next set of minutes. The September 10th minutes, which again, the 3 of us were present and represent a quorum.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 10th.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, thank you. Other matters?
I did have an other matter.
Okay.
I wanted to congratulate our football team on the wonderful game and their overwhelming win against Hopkinton. They just plowed down the other team, and there were a number of spectacular performances. Congratulations to the marching band on their platinum medal.
At the NESBA State Finals, yes, they received.
Again, plowed over the other teams.
as only a marching band can do.
Right. There's a football game 7 o'clock at Oliver Ames on Friday.
Is it 7 o'clock?
Yes,
It's
I
not
just
an
saw
early
the paper.
start.
No, it's 7 o'clock, and
It's going to be 55 degrees and a beautiful day, and there is no excuse to not come out.
No, we have to crowd the place. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the last other item I have, because we won't be meeting before then, is a week from tonight, November 19th, is the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, which is considered the most perfect speech ever written.
Yeah.
So.
I have 2 minutes if you'd like to deliver it. Sorry, I'm getting a little punchy. Do you have any other matters?
I'm fine.
I actually have one, and I promise not to. I'm going to be a little preachy, but we had a situation, as we do every year, and several times a year, where we invite the, in conjunction with the police department, they do a safety search, a safety check, which involves using dogs to test. I can't talk, to check for the presence of drugs in the schools, in the high school. And it went beautifully, it went smoothly. But where I'm going to get a little preachy is, and that's something we talked about with social media, and I think sometimes where adults don't quite get the rules of social media or understand the implications of their words. And the Stoughton Police Department put out a post on their Facebook page just as the process started, saying not to be alarmed by the presence of police cars, a number of police cars at the school. It was a routine safety check, and involving the dogs, and I think pretty much everybody understood what that was. But there were posts later that were, I thought, irresponsible, and not what I expect of adults. And I don't want to hear, I guess, people kind of being call to action, being told that there are some incident going down at the high school, that kids are being arrested, a number of items. A, it was wrong. B, you're talking about minors here for the most part. And the situation evolved over days to where it became a verbal chain of 12 students found at the middle school and huge, suspension. And the reality after talking to Officer Devine yesterday was, the middle school principal did ask if there was any available, that they would bring an officer and dog, and one officer and dog did go down to the middle school. And it's really more just to again, get the children comfortable with what the process is as they move to high school, and that there was nothing found in that as well. But the rumor mill, not by children, the rumor mill by adults, I thought was appalling. And we owe it to our children to model appropriate behavior for them, and I think that social media, much like the electronic news media where you have the ability to comment anonymously, lends itself to really, really bad behavior. So again, really just like to remind people that we are here to model appropriate behavior, that we are in fact dealing with minors whose job it is ours to protect. No matter what their indiscretions may be in life, we've all made mistakes. This is a time for children to learn appropriate behavior, and they're certainly no better people to teach it than the community. So,
and if I could just piggyback on that and say that the search did not turn up any evidence of any drugs in the high school or in any cars in any of the parking lots or in any of the possessions of any of the students in any lockers. It was, in every way, a clean sweep.
And I'm not sure that if we chose 2,000 adults, that we'd have the same results. Because we are, in fact, talking about nearly 2,000 children when we're talking about
Can I piggyback on that?
Please.
In all school districts, we do this so in the event of emergency, the kids are used to this happening. They're used to lockdowns. to keep them safe. So this is a procedure that is a safety procedure to support our children and to keep them safe. So anything outside of that is a little different.
And I'd like to thank the Stoughton Police Department for their coordination and efforts in this.
And the one of the purposes of a sweep like this is no one wants to find drugs in the possession of any children. Of course, if one does, then you have an opportunity to help them. But the idea is basically to deter anyone from bringing drugs to school, and obviously it has had some impact in that regard.
And your kids passed with flying colors.
Yeah.
So that was my only other matter. Thank you for indulging me by being a preachy parent.
That's okay.
Thanks. We do have financial warrants that will be circulated in the school committee room. We are going into executive session tonight. Go back to my my cheat sheet, which is right here. I've got it on I've got it loaded. Oh, you've got it? I'm so ready. Got it loaded on my OML quick. Although my iPad's deciding to kind of freak out on me tonight and only show me a couple things.
Just a request, Madam Chair, and I'm ready.
This is what I'm getting.
You can share.
Oh, when I turn it, it comes back. Thank you. So we're going into executive session tonight for the acceptance of minutes. The agenda should say for the executives, for regular meetings or for the executive sessions of August 27th and September 10th. Also for the collective bargaining strategy for Unit A. And is there, in fact, a personnel issue for tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so the reasons then for executive session would be number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And personnel issue, I would imagine number 1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than the professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Very well. As mentioned, financial warrants will be circulated. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for November 26, 2013. I will be taking a roll call vote. Do we need a motion?
So made.
Second?
Roll call vote. Ms. Sauvanet?
Yes.
Dr. Brown?
Yes.
Myself, yes. We will not be taking any votes in executive session, so this portion of the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.